You've been listening to the podcast, the new author, Uncle MeShorn, I'm Not Your Black, from Louisville, Kentucky. This conversation, the family. You're my family. Welcome back. This is another broadcast of Conversation Family. This is your local Uncle MeShorn from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm here with my dad, Dad Daniels. I've come to the understanding and I accept the fact that our family, as people who are descendants of slaves in this country, was an intentional thing to separate us and divide our family. I thought, called my dad and I called him and said, "Hey, Dad, I think I don't know it, no other father son that's on a broadcast and working together. Why is it that the conversation or the relationship of father and sons when it comes to us who are descendants of American slaves, the attack on those who identify themselves as blacks and African Americans?"
My dad worked pretty hard. Didn't spend a lot of time at home.
Is
He
that
was he
what
was
the
away more.
granddad do? What kind
He was more away than home. But again, he had a lot of personal things going on within himself, and I think that's what happens with many. There's so much going on within themselves that it's very difficult to have the type of close relationships that one would expect to have.
in my book I talk about the idea that I, I was I was navigating through three men that were in my life where I called them my fathers, and then I actually specifically identified you as is the one that really came back and identified yourself as someone that was going to take responsibility for your own actions and your own behaviors and everything. When I think about my mother, I guess trying to find a man or find someone to to be responsible. In my book, I really talk about the early years, and I talk about the three men that I identified as potential dads, and I talk about Clyde, MeShorn Floyd. My, how can you say that he donated the seed to me? And did you ever meet Clyde?
I really think because we didn't dialogue that much. Hello, how you doing type things. But as far as stay at rest and begin to focus
Right.
on things that can be done to make the tomorrow more meaningful. And I would rather
Yeah.
stick to that than trying to go back and try to regurgitate what the climb might have been like and so forth.
Yeah. You definitely true in your nature wants to move forward in the idea of looking forward. And I do understand that, but I part of the healing process that I believe that I was able to achieve by writing my book. I had to make some serious observations. And for all of those who may be listening to the show, I truly believe it's important that males becoming men, I think it's imperative that males who are trying to develop that understanding of who they are and what their purpose is, I believe it's important to get a clarification of your beginnings, and who you are and where you came from. At least that's what I believe has given me the healing or the process. Because I think even my little brother is struggling with that himself. Yeah, Charles Jr. How many Charles Juniors you have, Dad?
Two, what
Two.
Charles III and
Yeah.
Charles Jr. But
Right. Yeah. I want people to understand you and I have a special relationship, and I call you Dad, and I call you, I mean, someone very important in my life. But it was something that we had to develop. I'm under the impression and believing that the we have men, fathers, husbands, just men that do not want to deal with their skeletons and everything, and do not want to deal with the things that their past and everything. So they got sons and people that's looking at them, and sometimes if you don't get it, how do the children and the children, the generations coming to be, how they ever going to get it right? How are we going to help people get that spirit of forgiveness and understand that they're not willing to deal with their beginnings?
I'll never forget mine. I've done a lot of things in my time. I was a police sergeant, and I was working in internal security. And I had written up a fellow, white fellow, for some transaction or something he was doing that he shouldn't have been doing, and went through a lot of negative type talking, and as a result, and I walked away that day from law enforcement. I'm not saddened that I did, but it was just my time to really go and get a better understanding of what it meant to be free and not live in this dualistic mindset. Because when you're growing between more human knowledge than spiritual knowledge. And I came to one awareness, and that's the fact that our minds are screwed up with a four-letter word, LUST, and the other was love, LOVE. And all the documents and books and the media, they broadcast sex as love, and it was lust, but we grew believing that it was love. Now, the Creator said
Mm,
that I gave you a spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. He didn't say I gave you a spirit of lust and a weak mind. Lust is a part that we begin to enjoy as a result of getting together. But the fact still lies, it has nothing to do with love. And once you learn how to love the most important person to you, then you can begin to show that to someone else. And up until that point, I had a great woman than your mom, but she didn't have a great man.
right.
The fact that if two people are going to become one, changes have to be made. There's no dominant individual involved. People are learning how to become one together, and you respect her, and she respects you in the process. I placed in you the essence of myself, was a statement I got from the Bible. And if that's the
Right.
reality, that is within me. And if it is within me, then I got to start giving life to it, because if it's just there and I'm not using it or feeling it, then it's just like it's not being there. So, in other words, I had to learn how to love Charles Daniels before I can show anyone that the Creator placed in my existence.
As I was listening to you, you made me think about I was chasing love, but I got captured in lust. I was chasing love, okay, but I got captured in lust. And what I mean by that is that I wasn't accepted by. I was wanting the love of my fellow brothers and everything that looked like me and everything, and they let me know that I could not be accepted, part of their part of that group and everything, unless I learned how to lust. I had to learn how to speak the native tongue of using profanity. I had to practice a lot of unnatural things to be accepted to be a part of. And one of those things was learning how to have relationship, no commitment, multiple relationships with women and everything. So what I'm what I'm saying in my book, I'm not your black America. I'm really speaking to the demographics of all of us that are born after 1960, the era after Martin Luther King. We can actually get to that part where we must learn how to unlearn, okay? what wasn't and hasn't been working, and then relearn to become who we individually must become, not the group. No, we was chasing how to be black power as a group. We was chasing how to do all these, all like we were still looking for a new Martin Luther King to identify. We want to be part of, but it's really has come down to God has given us the individual authority and power over ourselves, and we must learn how to unlearn.
The teachings of the time, you follow, okay, I'm black and I'm proud. Those were the carryings of those times. That's not the carrying of
Right.
these times. And now you still have to put that stand in yourself in regards to who am I in these times.
This is a quote. I really like this quote here from James Baldwin, and this is a quote that I think speaks to us culturally as men evolving. He says, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and rights to exist." James Baldwin, my book, I'm Not Your Black America, is a spinoff of his book he wrote, I'm Not Your Negro. I'm not your Negro. I'm not your Black America. And
And
I think,
that's very true. And it's no different than
right,
how one feels today. I'm going to show you love, but I'm not going to take your crap. I'm going to show you respect, and I expect that in return. And if you have a problem with that, then the best thing you can do for me right now is to leave. We
there
are
you go.
one in regards to people feeling that we're on the same equal. Now, there are others out there who don't see that at all. They have to blend the men and all of that, but the closest factor might not be there. However, I'm not responsible for how another man feels. What
No,
comes from a
exactly.
man's
Exactly.
mouth, right, comes from a man's mouth. I can't stop him from saying what he's saying, but now I can allow my attitude to react to all what he's saying, or I can walk away from his ignorance.
Yeah, tell that story. You got a story where you had a guy that I love that story you tell. You said with the nightstick. It was a nightstick.
He thought I was crazy, but law enforcement, it's not about pulling out the gun all the
Right.
time. Sometimes you just have to use your head and say something. So the fellow was angry, and I realized he was angry, and I had to arrest him, and he was still very vocal. And I said, "Look, it's apparent you want to get physical with me. I don't want to curse over the air, but there were some words said in there, and I said, I'm going to help you out." And I extended my nightstick out to him, and I placed my hand on my gun, and I said, "Okay, you want to beat my behind, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to do it. Take the stick." And he looked at me and smiled and said, "Man, you crazy." Sometimes you just have to do some things
Right.
to make some things happen. It's not all having to be ugly and pulling out your gun and shooting somebody just because somebody's talking a bunch of crap.
Yeah, what you did is exercise some authority as self control. You extended him the right or the opportunity to make the choice, okay, of what he wanted to do. And that leads me into why I think it's so important that today, demographics of us who identify ourselves, you still identify yourself through color. I think it's so important today, the 21st century, that you must learn how to make yourself an asset in America. You got to stop being concerned about the past, what happened to the past, and how someone might have treated your father or your previous family, or maybe how someone maybe treated someone else. You must be in control of your character and your in a way that you handle and behave yourself. You must be in control of your character and your in a way that you handle and behave yourself. And I use my example as working in the operating room multiple times as I had already learned how to navigate within the operating room. And once I had that learned how to navigate in that dominant environment, I remember other people, demographics of people, or even some of mine would come in that environment, and the first thing that they wanted to do because of their own experiences of dealing with people or being in an environment that was they were the minority and the dominant majority, they themselves carry their own inferiority of being in an environment. They allowed themselves to behave. And the thing is that when you come in an environment and you succumb and you make yourself come across less than, then people will treat you in the manner that you allow yourself to come. It's the same thing what you were just saying. I allow people to treat me in a manner that I want to be treated.
The fact still lasts,
Right.
whatever came out of your mouth. I'm going to let you have that. And I can walk away from, or I can get angry as a result of that. But the person that's going to suffer the most is going to be me. So the fact
Especially
lies
during that
during that particular time. So you don't go to put yourself in no bind because when it all boils down, you're going to be the one that's going to be the most. When the police came, it was going to be you. Now, it's not too much difference in that in today with the attitudes in regards to that. Sometimes, even with the police, just listen and let him say what he got to say. After all, I don't know him, he don't know me. He's protecting the law, and for me to get an attitude, I'm going to give him what he wants. So the best thing I can do at that particular point is just maintain my cool and hopefully get released because I'm not going to say anything that's going to put me in jail. But if the situation came, then hey, I'm just in jail. But I'm not going to let a mental state cause me to be placed in jail. So sometimes it's just
right.
best to hear what he got to say and be his, here's my license, right? And then go through all that negativity that we might go through. And once you're freed to go, you go. And that's over. So sometimes you just have to hear and don't hear. And as long as it's not physically involved, then hey, what can he say that's going to offend me? There's some reality. If he called me black, then I'm not going to get angry about that. The fact still last, we had to learn how to endorse ourselves in love. Then a lot of that silly stuff that's happening out there, we wouldn't take personal.
And so as we're coming to a close, I'm going to share the story. We was on Facebook talking. He said some very strong, offensive things my way, and so I said what I said back to the individual, and the person couldn't handle. This person all of a sudden became so angry at the trash that I spoke to them that they literally said to me that I'm out of town right now, but I'm coming into town in a couple days, and I'm gonna call you up, and I want to see if you gonna say what you gonna say to me. We talking about, he literally wanted to fight and everything, and I said to him, I said, listen up, dude. Let me explain something to you. I'm a married man. I got a wife and kids, and there I got something to live for, bro. I mean, it ain't that serious. Slow your roll, home slice. Okay, I just slow your roll, dude. It ain't that serious. I got something to live for. Okay, you know, tone your feelings down, get out of your feelings and everything, and understand we just having conversations and everything. But we don't have to take it to the sense that we're going to actually try to act like we're going to try to exterminate one another over some words and everything. And the person, he said, no. I said, no. He said, you can come all day long. I'm not going to meet you, ain't going to come see you. Okay. I said, because first of all, I'm already seeing you can't handle a conversation and you getting yourself all that. But I'm not gonna. I have nothing to prove, dude. I ain't had nothing to prove, other than I supposed to try to get home and take care of my family and everything. And the person finally, after a couple of days, he called me back and he realized I was right. I said, dude, we don't have to. These are times that we don't have to allow things.
To give him something back is probably what they expected anyway. But the fact still lies, why am I going to give ugly to ugly? If anything, I'm going to say something very quick and simple and say, hey, man, hey, that's your opinion. Sorry you feel that way, and turn around and walk away and leave it.
What
And the tone that goes along with it could give a bad interpretation to the person that's listening. So the fact still lies, being that you know that you got that type of dominance in you. Sometimes it's not good to advise someone with that MeShorn type sound and just say okay, especially if they're coming off and seeing or you're feeling that they're getting some type of negative feels from it, because that creates a weakness on his side and you're showing a strength on yours. So you don't have to feed that. Just leave it alone and just say, hey, that's on you. Because that's the way he thinks, or that's the way that he feels. Hey, I can't change that. Ain't no sense me getting in no conversation about all that.
with that being said, that's Daddy Daniels giving me some counseling here on maybe my tone every now and then, but I will just leave it as this here is that's why he's my dad, okay? And that's why I labeled him as being wise. So with this being said, say something to everybody, Dad.
I would suggest you stand in front of a mirror and give some praise to the individual that you see. And let that individual know how much you appreciate them and how much you love them and how great they are. Now you're talking to yourself, and you need to build you up and not expect it to come from anyone else. And if you get it from someone else, then that's great. But if you don't, you're giving it to the most important person, yourself. Love you and tell yourself how much you love and appreciate.
And you just came and hung out with the conversation dot family because now you're family. We thank you for participating in this show. Thank you, Dad Daniels. Thank you, Pop, for hanging out with me today, man. We like having these conversations because we're family and you're not part of the family. Take care.
Take care.
You've been listening to the podcast, The New Author, Uncle MeShorn, I'm Not Your Black, from Louisville, Kentucky. This conversation, the family. You're my family.